Welcome to my channel, a list that bring your story about the love of a mafia boss. Now let's listen.
The fluorescent lights of Myers' diner buzzed like dying wasps above my head, casting everything in that sickly yellow glow that made even the freshest coffee look stale. My feet ached. That deep, bone-tired ache that starts in your heels and crawls up your calves like poison ivy. 6 hours into my double shift, and the smell of grease had permanently fused itself to my hair, my skin, my uniform that was 2 sizes too big, because it was a hand-me-down from Linda, who'd quit last month without notice. I wiped down table 7 for what felt like the 100th time, my reflection staring back at me from the chrome napkin dispenser. Hollow eyes, pale skin, hair pulled back so tight it gave me a headache. I looked like a ghost. Felt like one too. "Lily, order up!" Marco's voice cut through the dinner rush cacophony. I grabbed the plates, meatloaf special, extra gravy, and delivered them to the truck driver at table 3 who didn't even look up from his phone. No thank you. No acknowledgement. I was furniture, wallpaper, part of the peeling linoleum and cracked vinyl booths that made up this forgotten corner of downtown. 3 months postpartum, and my body still didn't feel like mine. Emma was home with Mrs. Chen from 3B, probably crying herself to sleep again because Mama had to keep working. The medical bills from the delivery were drowning me. And Jacob, her father, had disappeared the moment he saw the positive test. Vanished like smoke. My breasts ached. I'd pumped during my break in the storage room, hunched over like some kind of dairy cow, storing the bottles in the employee fridge next to Marco's leftover pad thai. The absurdity of it would have been funny if it wasn't so utterly degrading. The dinner bell chimed. I didn't look up immediately. After 8 months working at Myers, you develop a sixth sense about customers, the desperate ones, the lonely ones, the ones who'll stiff you on the tip. The bell's tone told me this was different. Heavier somehow, like the air pressure had changed. When I finally turned, my breath caught. 3 men stood at the entrance. No, 2 men flanked a third. And that third man, he was the kind of person who changed the gravity in a room. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my yearly rent. Dark hair swept back from a face carved from marble. Strong jaw. Sharp cheekbones. Eyes so dark they looked black in the diner's harsh light. But it wasn't his looks that made my pulse stutter. It was the way he stood. The absolute stillness of someone who'd never questioned his place in any room. The 2 men beside him, definitely security, scanned the diner with predatory awareness, hands resting too casually near their jackets. This wasn't a man who ate at Myers' diner. "Sit anywhere you like," I heard myself say, my voice smaller than I wanted. The man's gaze swept the room and landed on me. For exactly 3 seconds, I felt seen. Truly seen. For the first time in months, not looked at. Not looked through. Seen. Something flickered in those obsidian eyes. Something I couldn't name, but that made my skin prickle with warning. He moved to the corner booth, the one with a view of both entrances, and his security positioned themselves at adjacent tables. One pulled out his phone. The other kept his eyes on the door. I approached with trembling hands, menu tucked under my arm. Up close, he was even more devastating. The scent of him hit me first. Expensive cologne, something woody and dark with an undertone of danger, mixed with cigarette smoke and leather. His hands rested on the table, scarred knuckles, a thick silver ring on his right hand engraved with something I couldn't make out. "Coffee?" he said. His voice was deep, accented. Italian, maybe, or something Mediterranean. "Black. Anything else?" I managed. His eyes flicked to my name tag, Lily. He said it like he was tasting it. "Just coffee. For now." I poured with shaking hands, hyper-aware of his gaze tracking every movement. When I set the cup down, our fingers brushed. His skin was warm, calloused. I jerked back like I'd been burned. "You're afraid," he observed. Not a question. "No, But my voice betrayed me, cracking. "You should be." The faintest smile curved his lips, though it didn't reach his eyes. But not of me. Before I could process that cryptic statement, one of his security guards leaned in, whispering urgently. The man's expression changed, hardened into something that made my blood run cold. He stood abruptly, pulling out a phone, and I heard him speaking in rapid Italian, too fast for me to catch any words. Then I heard it. A baby crying. The sound came from just outside, from what I now noticed was a black SUV with tinted windows parked illegally in front of the diner. The cry wasn't just fussing, it was the desperate, exhausted wail of an infant in distress. The man moved toward the door, and I should have stayed behind the counter. Should have minded my own business, should have remembered that people like him, people with armed security and $1,000 suits, lived in a different world, a dangerous world I had no business touching. But that cry, God, that cry sounded exactly like Emma's when she was hungry and nothing would soothe her. I followed him outside. The November air bit through my thin uniform, raising goosebumps on my arms. One of the security guards tried to block me, but the man waved him off. The SUV's back door was open. Inside, a woman in a designer dress was holding a tiny baby. Couldn't have been more than 6 months old, rocking him frantically. The child's face was red and scrunched, mouth open in that primal scream that every mother recognizes. "He won't eat," the woman was saying in heavily accented English, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. "Nothing, formula, water, nothing. 3 days now, Signor Dante. The doctors say there's nothing wrong. But he won't eat, he just cries and cries. Dante." So that was his name. "Have you tried different formulas?" I heard myself ask. Everyone turned to stare at me. The woman looked affronted. The security guards tensed, but Dante's expression was unreadable. "Everything," the woman said, her voice breaking. "Every formula, every bottle, every temperature, he just won't." I looked at the baby, at his tiny fists clenched in frustration, at the way his little body arched with each cry. I'd seen that before. Emma had done the same thing when we'd tried to switch her to formula after I went back to work. Some babies just refused anything artificial. My daughter had the same problem. I said quietly. She would only take breast milk. The doctors called it a strong oral aversion to synthetic nipples and formula proteins. The silence that followed was deafening. The woman's eyes widened. The security guards exchanged glances. And Dante was staring at me with an intensity that made my knees weak. "You have a child," he said. Not a question. A statement. 3 months old. "And you're nursing." Heat flooded my cheeks. "Yes. But I don't see how—" "The baby," he interrupted, his voice dropping to something almost gentle, "is my nephew. His mother died in childbirth. He is all my brother has left." His jaw clenched. "And he's dying because he won't eat." The weight of that statement hung in the air. This tiny, screaming infant was dying, wasting away because he refused every bottle, every formula, every attempt to feed him. I should have walked away, should have gone back inside, finished my shift, gone home to Emma. Instead, I heard myself say, "I just pumped during my break. The milk is inside, in the employee fridge." Another silence, longer this time. "You would do this?" Dante asked, stepping closer. For a stranger's child, I looked at the baby, at his desperate cries, at the way his little fingers grasped at nothing. I thought of Emma, of how terrified I'd been when she wouldn't eat, of that primal fear every mother knows when their child is suffering. "No mother should have to watch a baby starve," I whispered. Dante studied me for a long moment, something shifting in those dark eyes. Then he nodded once, sharp and decisive. "Bring it." I ran inside, my heart hammering. Marco yelled something about my tables, but I ignored him, yanking open the employee fridge and grabbing the 2 bottles I'd stored there. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped them. When I returned, Dante took the bottles with surprising gentleness. The woman, the nanny, I realized, warmed one quickly with hot water from a thermos in the SUV. Then she offered it to the baby. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. The infant's cries continued, his body rigid with refusal. Then his lips touched the nipple, and he latched. The silence was immediate and profound. The baby's desperate wails cut off as if someone had flipped a switch. He drank with the fierce, focused intensity of someone who'd been starving, which he had been. His tiny hands came up to grip the bottle, his eyes fluttering closed in relief. The nanny sobbed. One of the security guards crossed himself. and Dante stared at me like I'd just performed a miracle. "How much?" he asked quietly. "I'm sorry? How much do you want? For the milk? For helping my nephew?" I blinked, confused. I don't want anything. I'm just glad he's eating." Dante's expression shifted into something I couldn't read. "Everyone wants something, Lily. Not for this." I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly aware of the cold again, of my too thin uniform, of how utterly out of place I was standing next to this SUV that probably cost more than my entire building. A baby was hungry. I had food. That's all. He stepped closer, and I caught that scent again, smoke and leather and danger. When he spoke, his voice was low enough that only I could hear. "You have no idea what you just did." His hand reached out, and I flinched, but he only tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers barely brushing my skin. No idea what this means. Before I could respond, he pulled a card from his jacket and pressed it into my palm. Heavy cardstock, embossed with gold lettering. No name, just a phone number. "You'll need more bottles," he said. "For him, how much milk can you provide?" My brain stuttered. What? "My nephew needs your milk. You have a child who needs your milk. I have resources you clearly need." His eyes dropped to my worn shoes, my faded uniform, the exhaustion written in every line of my face. "This is a business arrangement. You provide what keeps my nephew alive, and I provide what keeps you and your daughter comfortable." "Yes?" "I don't understand." "You will." He stepped back toward the SUV, where the baby was still drinking contentedly, color already returning to his tiny face. "Someone will come to your home tomorrow. They'll bring equipment, supplies, whatever you need. You'll pump what you can spare after feeding your daughter. We'll collect it daily." "But I work." "You quit tomorrow." His tone made it clear this wasn't a suggestion. "I'll have someone deliver a check to cover your lost wages." "Triple what you make here." My head was spinning. "I can't just accept money from a stranger." "Dante Salvatore." He extended his hand. "Now we're not strangers." I stared at his outstretched hand, my heart pounding. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, that men like him were dangerous, that accepting anything from someone with armed guards and $1,000 suits would come with strings I couldn't afford. But I thought of Emma, of the medical bills, of the electricity shut-off notice, of working myself to death in a diner where no one even saw me. I reached out and shook his hand. His grip was firm, warm, possessive. He held on a moment too long, his thumb brushing across my knuckles in a gesture that felt far too intimate. "You saved his life," he said quietly, still holding my hand. "In my world, that creates a debt. A bond." His eyes locked onto mine. "And I always pay my debts, Lily." He released me and climbed into the SUV. The door closed, and the vehicle pulled away, leaving me standing on the sidewalk in my cheap uniform, holding a business card that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Inside, Marco was screaming about my abandoned tables. I walked back in on numb legs, my hand still warm where Dante Salvatore had touched it, and tried to convince myself I hadn't just made a deal with the devil. But when I got home that night and held Emma close, breathing in her perfect baby smell, I looked at the card again, at the phone number embossed in gold. And I knew, with bone-deep certainty, that my life would never be the same. The knock came at 7:30 the next morning, sharp and authoritative, jolting me awake from the 2 hours of sleep I'd managed between Emma's feedings. I stumbled to the door of my studio apartment, Emma fussing against my shoulder, and peered through the peephole. A woman stood in the hallway, tall, immaculate in a crisp white blouse and black slacks, holding a leather briefcase. Behind her, 2 men in suits carried large boxes. My stomach dropped. "Miss Hartley," the woman called through the door. "Mr. Salvatore sent us." Of course he did. Less than 12 hours after our encounter, and he'd already found where I lived. The thought should have terrified me. It did terrify me, but I was too exhausted to process it properly. I opened the door with trembling fingers, keeping the chain lock engaged. "I need to see identification," I managed, my voice hoarse from lack of sleep. The woman smiled, professional, efficient, and held up a badge. "Angela Russo, private medical consultant." These gentlemen are with Mr. Salvatore's security team. May we come in? I glanced at my apartment, the unmade futon that served as my bed, the laundry basket overflowing with onesies I hadn't had time to wash, the stack of medical bills on the counter that I'd been ignoring for weeks. Pride warred with desperation. Pride lost. I unhooked the chain and stepped aside. Angela entered like she owned the place, her heels clicking on my cheap linoleum. The two security guards followed, setting the boxes down with surprising gentleness. Up close, I could see they were both armed, shoulder holsters visible beneath their jackets. Mr. Salvatore instructed me to ensure you have everything you need, Angela said, already opening her briefcase. She pulled out a folder thick with papers. We've brought a hospital-grade breast pump, sterilization equipment, storage bags, bottles, and supplements to support milk production. Emma wailed louder, and I bounced her automatically, my arms aching. I don't understand. This is too much. The baby, Lorenzo, has been refusing food for 3 days. Angela's expression softened slightly. Your milk was the first thing he's accepted. You quite literally saved his life, Miss Hartley. Mr. Salvatore takes that very seriously. One of the guards was already unpacking boxes, setting up what looked like an incredibly expensive breast pump on my tiny kitchen counter. The other was loading my ancient, rattling refrigerator with bottles and supplies. I called your employer this morning, Angela continued, pulling out more papers. You've been removed from the schedule effective immediately. Here's a check for 3 months' wages in advance, plus a medical stipend and housing allowance. She handed me an envelope. I opened it with shaking hands. The check was for $45,000. My knees buckled. I sat down hard on the futon, Emma still crying against my chest. This can't be real. Mr. Salvatore is a very generous man when someone helps his family, Angela said, her tone neutral. He's also very thorough. I've taken the liberty of scheduling you with a lactation consultant for this afternoon, and a pediatrician for your daughter next week. Both visits are paid for. I stared at the check, at the number that could solve every problem crushing me. The medical bills, the rent I was 2 months behind on, the electricity that was days from being shut off, food, diapers, everything. What's the catch? I whispered. Angela's expression remained professional, but something flickered in her eyes. Respect, maybe, or warning. Mr. Salvatore expects you to provide milk for Lorenzo as long as the baby needs it. Someone will come daily to collect what you've pumped. In exchange, you'll receive monthly payments and full medical coverage for both you and your daughter. That's it? That's it, she paused. Though I should mention, Mr. Salvatore values loyalty and discretion above all else. What you're providing is sensitive. There are people who would use Lorenzo's vulnerability against Mr. Salvatore. You understand? The weight of her words settled over me like a heavy blanket. People who would hurt a baby to get to his uncle. What kind of world did Dante Salvatore live in? I won't tell anyone, I said quietly. Good. Angela smiled again, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. The pump is set up. I'll give you a quick tutorial, and then we'll leave you to rest. Mr. Salvatore suggested you might want help with cleaning and childcare. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. I can take care of my own daughter. Something like approval crossed Angela's face. As you wish. My number is in the folder if you need anything. The security team will check the building's perimeter. There have been concerns about safety in this neighborhood. They left 20 minutes later, after Angela had shown me how to use the pump and made me promise to call if I had any issues. I stood in my apartment, surrounded by expensive equipment and supplies, holding a check that felt like both salvation and damnation. Emma had finally fallen asleep in my arms, her tiny mouth slack, her breathing even and peaceful. I looked down at her perfect face, her father's nose, my eyes, a blend of two people who'd made a beautiful mistake together. What did Mama just do? I whispered to her sleeping form. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. The baby drank both bottles. He's sleeping peacefully for the first time in days. You have my gratitude. DS. I stared at the message, my heart doing something complicated in my chest. Before I could overthink it, I typed back, "I'm glad he's okay." 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. "Angela said you refused household help. I can take care of my own daughter." Pride is expensive, so is exhaustion. I frowned at the screen. "I'm fine. You're not, but you will be." The certainty in those words made something warm and dangerous unfurl in my stomach. I set the phone down and tried to ignore it, but it buzzed again seconds later. "Deposit the check today. Pay your bills. Buy your daughter things she needs. Let me do this." How did he know about my bills? Had Angela told him? Or had he already investigated me before sending her? The thought should have made me angry, should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt oddly protective. Like someone was watching over me for the first time in months. "Thank you," I typed finally. "Don't thank me yet, Lily." 3 weeks passed in a blur of feeding schedules and pump sessions. True to Dante's word, someone came every evening at 6 to collect the day's milk. Different men each time, always polite, always professional, always clearly armed. They never stayed more than 5 minutes, never asked questions beyond whether I needed anything. I paid off every medical bill, settled my back rent, bought Emma a proper crib instead of the second-hand bassinet that had been falling apart, got my electricity and water secured for the next 6 months. For the first time since her birth, I could breathe, but Dante haunted me, not physically. I hadn't seen him since that night at the diner. But his presence was everywhere, in the groceries that appeared at my door every Monday, far more than I'd need, in the check that arrived at the end of the first week, exactly as promised, in the text messages that came at odd hours. Did the lactation consultant help? Is Emma sleeping better? You should rest more. They were simple messages, nothing inappropriate, but something about them felt intimate in a way that made my skin prickle. Like he was thinking about me, watching over me, claiming me somehow through these small gestures of care. I told myself it was just business. He needed milk for his nephew. I needed money for my daughter, a simple transaction, but my dreams told a different story. Dreams where his scarred hands touched more than just my fingers. Where his dark eyes saw through every defense I'd built, where his voice whispered my name like a prayer or a curse, I couldn't tell which. I woke from those dreams gasping, my body aching with wants I had no right to feel. Emma was awake, crying for her night feeding. I lifted her from the crib, settled into the worn armchair I'd had since college, and let her nurse. In the darkness of my apartment, with my daughter's warm weight in my arms, I tried to convince myself that this arrangement was temporary, that eventually Lorenzo would wean, or accept formula, or I'd stop producing milk. That Dante Salvatore would disappear from my life as suddenly as he'd entered it. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. Men like Dante didn't just let people go. My phone buzzed on the side table, 2:30 in the morning. "Are you awake?" My heart stuttered. I shouldn't respond. Shouldn't encourage whatever this was becoming. "Feeding Emma," I typed back. Lorenzo woke hungry. 3 times tonight. I smiled despite myself. Welcome to parenthood. This isn't permanent for me. He's my brother's son. Where is your brother? A long pause. Then, dealing with the woman who caused all this. The words sent ice through my veins. I remembered what he'd said that first night. Lorenzo's mother had died in childbirth. But the way he phrased this, dealing with the woman who caused all this, sounded ominous, dangerous. "I should let you rest," his next message came. "But I've been wanting to ask, are you managing? Truly?" "Yes, the money helps. More than I can say." "Good. You deserve help." "Why?" I typed before I could stop myself. "Why are you doing all this? The money is way more than necessary just for milk." The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, "Because you helped my family when you had every reason not to. Because you looked at a stranger's dying child and gave him the one thing that could save him. Because in my world, kindness is rare. And I protect rare things." I stared at the message, my chest tight. Emma had fallen asleep at my breast, milk-drunk and peaceful. I carefully moved her to my shoulder to burp her, my hands shaking slightly. I'm not rare. I'm just a single mother trying to survive. "You're rarer than you know," You don't even know me. I know you work double shifts to pay medical bills. I know you live in an apartment with mold in the bathroom and a landlord who ignores repair requests. I know Emma's father left the moment he learned you were pregnant. I know you haven't bought yourself new clothes in over a year. I know you cry in the shower so your daughter won't hear you. I froze, my blood running cold. How do you know all that? I make it my business to know everything about people I'm connected to. It keeps them safe. That's not protection. That's invasion. In my world, they're the same thing. I wanted to be angry, wanted to feel violated by this admission that he'd been investigating me, learning my secrets, watching me from whatever shadows he inhabited. But underneath the anger was something else. Something warm and treacherous that whispered I wasn't alone anymore. That someone was paying attention, that someone cared. God, I'm so stupid, I whispered to Emma's sleeping form. My phone buzzed again. I'm sorry if I frightened you. That wasn't my intention. What was your intention? Another long pause, to understand the woman who saved my nephew's life, and to make sure she never has to cry in the shower again. Tears burned my eyes. When was the last time someone had cared about my pain? When was the last time I'd felt anything other than invisible? I don't know what to say to that. Say you'll let me take care of you, both of you. This is just a business arrangement, is it? My hands trembled. It has to be. Why? Because you're dangerous, I thought. Because men like you live in a world I can't survive in. Because I've already made one catastrophic mistake with a man, and I can't afford another. Because I'm terrified of what I feel when I think about you. Because it's safer that way, I typed instead. Safe is overrated, Lily. Easy for you to say. Actually, it's not. I've never been safe a day in my life. But I've learned something important. Safety isn't about avoiding danger. It's about choosing who you trust to stand between you and the world. And you think I should trust you? I think you already do. Or you wouldn't have given your milk to my nephew. You wouldn't have taken my money. You wouldn't be texting me at 2:30 in the morning. He was right, damn him. I did trust him, in some inexplicable way that defied logic. From the moment he'd looked at me in that diner, I'd felt something shift, like the universe was rearranging itself around this dark, dangerous man who spoke in riddles and promises. I should go. Emma needs to sleep. So do you. I will. Liar. Despite everything, I smiled. Good night, Dante. Sogni d'oro, Lily. Sweet dreams. I set the phone down and carried Emma back to her crib, tucking her in with gentle hands. Then I stood at my window, looking out at the city lights, and wondered what kind of dreams a man like Dante Salvatore had. Somehow, I suspected they were nothing like sweet. The shift in our arrangement came exactly 4 weeks after that late-night conversation. I was feeding Emma on a Thursday afternoon when my phone rang. Not a text this time, but an actual call. Dante's number, which I'd shamefully saved in my contacts, even though I'd told myself I wouldn't. Hello? My voice came out breathier than I intended. Lily. Just my name, spoken in that dark velvet voice, and my stomach flipped. I need to see you. Is Lorenzo okay? He's thriving. Because of you. A pause, but we have a problem. My heart rate kicked up. What kind of problem? The kind better discussed in person. I'm sending a car. It will be there in 20 minutes. Wait, I can't just leave. Bring Emma. Angela will be with you. She's a registered nurse. Your daughter will be safe. His tone softened slightly. Please, Lily. This is important. He'd never said please before. That single word made my resistance crumble. Okay, I whispered. Good, and Lily? Wear something warm. Where we're going is cold. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my mind racing. 20 minutes. I had 20 minutes to make myself presentable, pack Emma's diaper bag, and somehow calm the anxiety clawing at my chest. I changed into the one decent outfit I owned, dark jeans and a burgundy sweater that Linda had given me before she quit the diner. It was slightly too big, but it was clean and didn't have spit-up stains. I brushed my hair until it shone, applied the bare minimum of makeup, and tried to ignore the voice in my head asking why I cared how I looked. The car arrived exactly 20 minutes later. Not an SUV this time, but a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. The driver, an older man with kind eyes and silver hair, introduced himself as Marco, and helped me with Emma's car seat with the practiced ease of a grandfather. Angela was already inside, immaculate as always, with a warm smile that did nothing to calm my nerves. "Mr. Salvatore wanted me to assure you that this meeting is purely precautionary," she said, as the car pulled away from my building. "There's been a development regarding Lorenzo's situation." "What kind of development?" "He'll explain everything, but I promise you're not in any danger." She glanced at Emma, who was staring wide-eyed at the fancy interior. "Neither of you." We drove for 40 minutes, leaving the city center and heading into an area I'd never been, where the buildings grew larger and farther apart, where walls and gates appeared around properties, where money spoke in hushed whispers rather than shouts. Finally, we turned through iron gates that opened automatically, following a long driveway lined with bare trees. The house, no, the estate, that appeared made my breath catch. It was massive, built of gray stone and dark wood, with tall windows that glinted in the late afternoon sun. Not a mansion in the gaudy sense, but something older, more refined, intimidating in its understated elegance. Security cameras were visible at every corner, and I spotted at least 3 guards patrolling the grounds. This was Dante's world, and I was so incredibly far out of my depth. Marco opened my door, and Angela helped me with Emma's carrier. My hands were shaking as we walked up the stone steps to the entrance, where another guard waited. He nodded at Angela, spoke briefly into a radio, then opened the heavy wooden door. The interior was breathtaking. All dark wood and leather, with artwork that looked like it belonged in museums. But it wasn't cold or sterile. There were touches of warmth. A throw blanket draped over a chair, books stacked on a side table, a child's toy, a stuffed lion, sitting forgotten on a sofa. Lorenzo's toy, I realized. Dante had brought his nephew here. "This way," Angela said gently, guiding me down a hallway. We emerged into a large living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a winter garden, and there, standing with his back to us, phone pressed to his ear and speaking rapid Italian, was Dante. He'd shed his suit jacket. His white shirt was rolled up to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars. His hair was slightly disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. Even from behind, he radiated tension. He turned as we entered, and our eyes met. The intensity of his gaze stole my breath. He looked at me like I was water in a desert, like I was something precious he'd been searching for. Then his eyes dropped to Emma in my arms, and something in his expression softened. "Momento," he said into the phone, then ended the call. He crossed to us in 3 long strides. "Lily, thank you for coming." "You didn't really give me a choice," I said, trying for lightness but failing. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "No, I didn't." He looked at Angela. "Is everything prepared?" "Yes, sir. The nursery is ready whenever Miss Hartley needs it." He nodded, and Angela slipped away, leaving us alone. The silence stretched, heavy with things unsaid. "You have a beautiful home," I managed finally. "It's a fortress," he corrected. "There's a difference." He moved closer, and I caught his scent, that intoxicating mix of smoke and leather and danger. "May I?" It took me a moment to realize he was asking about Emma. I nodded, too surprised to speak, and watched as this dangerous man, this person who had armed guards and spoke of debts and bonds, gently took my daughter into his arms. Emma stared up at him with wide eyes, then made a small cooing sound. Dante's expression transformed into something so tender it made my chest ache. "She's beautiful," he said quietly. "She has your eyes, and her father's stubbornness," I said without thinking. His gaze snapped to mine. "He was a fool to leave you. You don't know the situation. I know enough. I know he abandoned you when you were pregnant. I know he hasn't sent a single dollar or made a single call. I know he moved to California 3 weeks after Emma was born." His jaw clenched. "In my world, family is everything. A man who abandons his child is no man at all." The vehemence in his voice startled me. "Is that what this is about? You brought me here to talk about Emma's father?" "No." He carefully handed Emma back to me, his fingers brushing mine in a way that felt deliberate. I brought you here because Lorenzo's grandmother arrived from Italy yesterday. I blinked. His grandmother? My mother. Something dark crossed his face. She wants to take Lorenzo back to Sicily, raise him there, away from the life my brother and I lead. Understanding dawned cold and heavy. Which means she wants to end our arrangement. She's brought a wet nurse from Italy and plans to transition Lorenzo to her care. He turned away, moving to the window, his shoulders rigid. She arrives in an hour to inspect the situation and make her final decision. My heart sank. Of course. This had always been temporary. I'd always known that eventually Lorenzo would move on, would be taken care of by people in Dante's world, people who belonged there. So this is goodbye, I said quietly. He spun back to face me, his expression fierce. No. But you just said... I said my mother wants to end the arrangement. I didn't say I agreed. He closed the distance between us again, so close I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Lorenzo thrives on your milk. He's gained weight. He's sleeping better. He's healthy for the first time since birth. More than that. He hesitated, something vulnerable flickering in his dark gaze. He needs you, and I won't let my mother take that away from him. What are you saying? I'm saying you stay. You continue providing for Lorenzo. And if my mother objects... His voice dropped to something dangerous. I'll handle it. Dante, I can't come between you and your mother. You're not. She is. He reached out, and this time his hand cupped my face, his thumb brushing across my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. Do you know what I see when I look at you, Lily? I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. I see someone who gave everything to save a stranger's child. Someone who works herself to exhaustion to provide for her daughter. Someone who's been invisible to the world for so long that she's forgotten she deserves to be seen. His voice roughened. But I see you, and I won't let anyone take you away from what's mine to protect. I'm not yours, I whispered, even as my body betrayed me, leaning into his touch. Aren't you? His thumb traced my lower lip, and I shivered. You've been mine since the moment you walked out of that diner and offered your milk to my nephew. Since you trusted me enough to take my money, to accept my protection, since you started texting me at 2 a.m. That's not... We barely know each other. I know you better than anyone in your life right now. And you know me better than you think. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my face. Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me you don't wake up thinking about me. Tell me you don't trust me to keep you safe. I couldn't. God help me. I couldn't lie. This is crazy, I breathed. Yes. He smiled then, a real smile that transformed his face into something devastating. But crazy is better than invisible, better than alone. Emma chose that moment to fuss, breaking the spell. I stepped back, my heart racing, and focused on my daughter, on something real and solid that made sense. Your mother will never accept this, I said, not looking at him. A single mother from the wrong side of town providing for her grandson? She'll see me as exactly what you are, someone who saved Lorenzo's life. He moved to a side table and picked up a folder. I've prepared documentation, medical records showing Lorenzo's failure to thrive on formula, his improved health on your milk, recommendations from 3 different pediatric specialists. My mother is traditional, but she's not unreasonable. She'll see the evidence. And if she doesn't, his expression hardened, then she'll learn that Lorenzo is my responsibility now. My brother entrusted him to me before he left for Sicily. What I say goes. The certainty in his voice should have been arrogant. Instead, it felt like a shield settling around me, protection I hadn't asked for, but desperately needed. I don't understand why this matters so much to you, I said quietly. You're paying me. This is business. Why fight your mother over a business arrangement? He was silent for a long moment, something warring in his expression. Then he crossed back to me, taking Emma gently from my arms and cradling her with surprising expertise. She settled immediately, her tiny hand gripping his finger. My brother's wife, he said finally, his voice low, died because she was involved with the wrong people. People who wanted to hurt my family. She made choices, stupid, greedy choices, and those choices cost her life and nearly cost Lorenzo his. He looked down at Emma, his jaw clenched. When you gave your milk to Lorenzo, you did it without asking for anything, without agenda or ulterior motive. Just pure, selfless compassion. Do you have any idea how rare that is in my world? I shook my head, unable to speak. In my world, everyone wants something. Everyone has an angle. Love is transactional, loyalty is bought, and kindness is a weakness to be exploited. He looked up at me, and the raw honesty in his eyes made my knees weak. But you gave everything without asking for anything in return. You're real, Lily. And I won't let anyone take real things away from me. Not anymore. The sound of cars on the gravel driveway made us both turn. Through the window, I could see multiple vehicles pulling up. A convoy, really, black SUVs and a silver Mercedes. She's here, Dante said quietly. He handed Emma back to me, his hands lingering on mine. Stay calm. Let me handle this. No matter what she says, no matter how she looks at you, remember, you saved Lorenzo. Nothing else matters. But as I watched an elegant older woman emerge from the Mercedes, dressed in designer black and dripping with jewelry, flanked by guards and what looked like household staff, I knew that everything was about to change, and I had no idea if I was ready for it. Dante's mother swept into the house like a queen entering her throne room. Regal, commanding, utterly terrifying. She was perhaps 60, with silver-streaked dark hair pulled into an immaculate chignon, sharp cheekbones, and eyes the same obsidian shade as her son's. Her gaze swept the room, landed on me holding Emma, and froze. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Dante. Her voice was cultured, accented heavily, each syllable precise. Chia questa donna? English, Mama, Dante said, moving to stand beside me. Not in front of me, beside me. You know I prefer it when we have guests. Guest? Her eyes narrowed. This is the woman? The one providing milk for my grandson like some common wet nurse? The disdain in her voice made me flinch, but Dante's hand found the small of my back, steadying me. This is Lily Hartley, he said, his tone brooking no argument. And yes, she's the reason Lorenzo is alive. Show some respect, Mama. The older woman's eyebrows rose to her hairline. In the doorway behind her, I could see Angela hovering nervously, along with several other people, including a young woman in a nurse's uniform holding Lorenzo. The baby was awake, his dark eyes alert and curious. He looked healthy, pink-cheeked, bright-eyed, completely different from the wailing, emaciated infant I'd first seen 4 weeks ago. When he spotted Dante, he made a happy, gurgling sound and reached out his little arms. Something in my chest squeezed tight. My grandson looks well, Dante's mother admitted, her gaze still fixed on me, but this arrangement is inappropriate. I have brought Maria, she gestured to the young woman holding Lorenzo, from our family estate in Sicily. She is properly vetted, trained, and from good family. She will care for Lorenzo. Lorenzo doesn't need another caretaker, Dante said. He needs Lily's milk. Every attempt to transition him to formula has failed. Every wet nurse we've tried before Lily resulted in screaming and starvation. You want what's best for him? Then let me handle this my way. His mother's lips pressed into a thin line. And what is your way, exactly? Keeping this girl on retainer indefinitely, having her come and go from our home like staff? If necessary, yes, Dante. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to rapid Italian. I couldn't understand the words, but the tone was clear. Warning, disapproval, command. Dante responded in the same language, his voice equally sharp, and I felt like an intruder watching a battle I had no right to witness. Emma squirmed in my arms, sensing my tension. I bounced her gently, trying to soothe both of us, and wondered if I should just leave. Walk out the door, end this arrangement, go back to my small life where I understood the rules. But then Lorenzo made a fussy sound, and Maria tried to shush him, bouncing him awkwardly. His fussing escalated into whimpering, then crying. Maria looked panicked, trying to offer him a bottle. He refused it, turning his head away, his cries growing more desperate. I watched, my heart breaking, as the baby who'd been so content moments ago worked himself into full distress. Maria tried everything, different positions, different bottles, soothing words in Italian, but Lorenzo only screamed louder. Dante's mother watched this with increasing frustration, snapping instructions at Maria in Italian. But nothing worked. Lorenzo's face turned red, his little body going rigid with that awful cry I recognized. The sound of a hungry baby who knew what he wanted and wasn't getting it. Enough. Dante took Lorenzo from Maria's arms, and the baby immediately quieted a fraction, grabbing onto his uncle's shirt. But when Dante tried to offer the bottle Maria had been using, Lorenzo screamed again, batting it away. The sound was identical to that first night at the diner. Pure, desperate refusal. Dante's eyes met mine across the room, and I saw the question there. The plea. I shouldn't. His mother was already furious. Inserting myself would only make things worse. I should stay quiet, invisible, the way I'd learned to be my whole life. But Lorenzo was screaming, and I could help. May I? I asked quietly. Dante's mother turned to stare at me like I'd spoken in tongues. Assolutamente no. Yes. Dante interrupted, already moving toward me. I handed Emma to Angela, who'd appeared at my elbow, then held out my arms for Lorenzo. The baby came to me readily, his little hands immediately going to my chest, rooting instinctively. His cries cut off the moment I held him, replaced by urgent whimpering. I have bottles in my bag, I said to no one in particular. I pumped before coming. Angela retrieved them quickly, and I settled into the nearest chair, giving Lorenzo the bottle with the nipple he recognized, the milk he craved. He latched immediately, drinking with fierce contentment, his tiny body relaxing against mine. The silence in the room was deafening. Dante's mother stood frozen, staring at us. At her grandson drinking peacefully for the first time since she'd arrived. At me, this nobody from nowhere, holding the most precious thing in her world. You see? Dante said quietly. This is why she stays. His mother's expression cycled through emotions too quickly to track. Shock, disbelief, reluctant acceptance, and something that might have been respect. Finally, she sank onto the sofa, suddenly looking every one of her 60 years. He knows you, she said to me, her English heavily accented but clear. He trusts you. I've been providing his milk for a month, I said carefully, keeping my voice neutral. Babies recognize scent, voice. It's natural he'd be comfortable with me. Natural. She laughed bitterly. Nothing about this situation is natural. My grandson, raised on milk from a stranger. My son, so protective of an arrangement with a woman he barely knows. Her sharp gaze moved between Dante and me. Unless there's something more here than business? Mama, Dante warned. I'm not blind, Dante. I see how you look at her, how you position yourself between her and the world. She stood again, moving closer to examine me like I was a curiosity in a museum. You're very young, 23, I said. And you have a child of your own. No husband? No, ma'am. The father? Gone. Something shifted in her expression. Not sympathy exactly, but understanding. She looked at Emma in Angela's arms, then back at Lorenzo, contentedly drinking in mine. 2 babies, she murmured, both needing their mothers, both abandoned by worthless men. She turned to Dante. At least you didn't abandon Lorenzo, your brother, though. Her face hardened. When he returns from handling that woman's family, we will have words. Get in line, Dante said dryly. His mother almost smiled, then she looked at me again, her expression shrewd. If this arrangement continues, there will be conditions. My stomach dropped. Of course. You will be compensated fairly, more than fairly. My son is generous to a fault with those who help our family. Her tone made it clear she thought this a weakness. But you will also be vetted thoroughly. Background checks, medical examinations, security clearances. You understand why this is necessary? I nodded, my throat tight. You need to protect Lorenzo. Precisely. We have enemies, Miss Hartley, people who would use an innocent child to hurt us. If you're going to be in Lorenzo's life, you need to be above suspicion. She paused. Can you accept that level of scrutiny? I thought of my empty life, my lack of secrets. The worst anyone would find was unpaid parking tickets and a history of financial struggle. Yes. Good. She moved to the window, her posture rigid. I also require that you understand the nature of our family business. Dante, show her. Mama, that's not necessary. Show her. If she's going to be involved with us, she needs to know exactly what that means. Dante's jaw clenched, but he nodded. He pulled out his phone, typed something, then turned the screen to face me. It was a news article. The headline read, Salvatore crime family, federal investigation continues. Below were photos, Dante's face among them, younger, harder, being led from a courthouse in handcuffs. My heart stopped. We are not legitimate businessmen, Miss Hartley, his mother said bluntly. We are what your country calls organized crime, the Mafia, if you prefer the dramatic term. My late husband built an empire that my sons now maintain. We have connections to everything your government considers illegal. Gambling, loan sharking, protection rackets, and yes, occasionally violence when necessary. I stared at the phone, at Dante's face in those photos, trying to reconcile the man who'd been so gentle with Emma, who'd texted me at 2 a.m, who'd fought his mother to keep me in Lorenzo's life, trying to reconcile him with the word crime family. You're afraid, Dante's mother observed. Good. Fear means you understand the danger. I'm not afraid of Dante, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. I'm afraid of what knowing this means for Emma, for me. It means you're under our protection, Dante said, his voice rough. No one touches you, no one threatens you. But it also means you can never speak of this to anyone, never testify, never cooperate with authorities, never betray our trust. And if I want to walk away right now? Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Then you walk away, Dante said finally. I won't stop you, won't threaten you, but you'll leave knowing Lorenzo needs you. Knowing that without your milk, he'll suffer. Knowing that He stopped, his jaw working. Knowing that I'll let you go if that's what you choose. His mother made a disgusted sound. You're too soft, Dante. Maybe. His eyes never left mine. Or maybe I'm smart enough to know that keeping someone against their will only breeds resentment. Lily stays because she chooses to. Or she doesn't stay at all. I looked down at Lorenzo, still drinking peacefully, his little hand wrapped around my finger. I thought of Emma, of the money that had saved us, of the security I'd felt for the first time in months. I thought of late-night texts and gentle touches, and the way Dante looked at me like I mattered. I need to think, I whispered. Take all the time you need, Dante said. But think here. Stay for dinner. Let Lorenzo finish eating. Let Emma rest in the nursery I've prepared. Make your decision with a clear head. His mother snorted. You've prepared a nursery? For her child? For both children, he corrected. Lorenzo needs Lily. Lily needs Emma. Therefore, Emma is welcome in my home. You've lost your mind. Maybe. He smiled slightly. But it's my mind to lose. I stayed. Not because I'd decided anything, but because Lorenzo was still eating, and Emma needed changing, and I was so tired of fighting every battle alone. Angela showed me to a nursery that was more luxurious than my entire apartment. 2 cribs, a changing table, a rocking chair, every possible supply and comfort. Mr. Salvatore had this set up 3 days ago, Angela said quietly. He was hoping you'd agree to visit more often. He's very presumptuous. He's very determined. She smiled. I've worked for this family for 10 years, Miss Hartley. I've never seen Dante like this. Protective, yes. He's always protected family. But this is different. You're different. I'm no one, I said, changing Emma's diaper with practiced efficiency. A broke single mother who happened to be in the right place at the right time. You saved Lorenzo's life. In this family, that makes you family. She touched my arm gently. Think carefully before you walk away. Men like Dante don't let people in easily. When they do, they hold on with everything they have. She left me alone then, and I sat in that beautiful nursery with both babies, trying to make sense of my life. 4 weeks ago, I'd been invisible, desperate, drowning in debt and exhaustion. Then Dante Salvatore had walked into a diner, and everything had changed. Crime family, mafia, federal investigations. I should run. Should grab Emma and disappear before I got any deeper into this dangerous world. But when I closed my eyes, all I could see was Dante's face. The way he looked at Emma like she was precious. The way he'd stood beside me, not in front of me, when facing his mother. The way he'd promised to let me go if I chose to leave. Most men took, demanded, controlled. Dante offered, protected, waited. What do? I whispered to Emma, who just blinked at me with innocent eyes. A soft knock interrupted my spiral. Dante stood in the doorway, having removed his tie, looking somehow more dangerous in his dishevelment. May I come in? I nodded, not trusting my voice. He entered slowly, carefully, like I was a wild animal he might spook. When he reached me, he knelt beside the rocking chair, putting himself below my eye level, submissive almost, vulnerable. I need to tell you something, he said quietly. Something my mother doesn't know, something no one knows except my brother and me. My heart hammered. Okay. Lorenzo's mother. She didn't just die in childbirth, she was murdered. His voice was flat, emotionless, but his hands were clenched into fists. She stole from us, gave information to our enemies, put not just our business but our entire family at risk. My brother found out, confronted her, and someone, we still don't know who, killed her before we could get answers, killed her and made it look like complications from delivery. I couldn't breathe. Oh my God, there are people out there who want to hurt us, Lily. People who would use Lorenzo or you or Emma if they thought it would give them leverage. He looked up at me, and the raw fear in his eyes gutted me. That's why my mother wants to take Lorenzo to Sicily, why she wants to end this arrangement. Not because she doesn't trust you, but because she's terrified of losing another grandchild. Then maybe she's right, I whispered. Maybe I should stay away. Keep Emma safe. You're safer with me than without me. His hand covered mine, warm and solid. If you walk away now, you're just another vulnerable single mother in a dangerous city, but under my protection, no one touches you. Ever. I have resources, Lily, power, and I will use every bit of it to keep you safe if you'll let me. Why? The word broke on a sob. Why do you care so much? You don't even know me. I know you gave Lorenzo your milk when you could have walked away. I know you work yourself to exhaustion for Emma. I know you cry in the shower and pretend everything's fine. I know you're strong and stubborn and so goddamn beautiful it hurts to look at you. His voice roughened. And I know that for the first time in my life, I want something that isn't about power or business or family obligation. I want you, and I want to keep you safe. Is that reason enough? Tears spilled down my cheeks. This is insane. I know. I should leave. I know. But I don't want to. His expression transformed, relief and hunger and something tender that made my chest ache. Then stay. Not forever. Not until you're ready. Just stay for dinner. Stay tonight. Wake up tomorrow and decide again. One day at a time, Lily. That's all I'm asking. One day at a time. I could do that. Maybe. Okay, I whispered. One day at a time. He stood, pulling me up with him. And for a moment we just stood there, babies between us. His hands holding mine, his eyes holding mine, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down like a physical force. Then Emma started crying, breaking the spell, and I laughed. A wet, slightly hysterical sound. Dinner, Dante said, smiling slightly. Then we'll figure out the rest, but as I followed him downstairs, I knew there was no figuring this out. I was already too deep, already too invested, already falling for a man who lived in shadows and danger, and God help me, I didn't want to stop. I stayed that night, and the next. And somehow, one day at a time became a week, then 2, then a month. Dante's mother returned to Sicily after extracting promises from both Dante and me, that Lorenzo's safety would come first, always. She'd softened slightly toward me after seeing how Lorenzo thrived, how Emma and Lorenzo seemed to comfort each other when placed in the same crib, how I navigated her son's dangerous world with quiet grace rather than dramatic fear. "You're stronger than you look," she'd told me the day before she left, her sharp eyes assessing. "Good. You'll need to be." I didn't fully understand what she meant until 3 weeks later. It was a Tuesday evening. I was in Dante's home, because somehow over the past weeks, I'd started thinking of it that way. Feeding both babies in the nursery. Emma on my breast, Lorenzo with a bottle of my milk propped carefully in his bassinet beside me. Dante's house had become a strange kind of sanctuary. During the day, I'd return to my apartment to maintain some semblance of independence, but most evenings, I found myself here, drawn by Lorenzo's needs, and if I was honest, by Dante himself. We'd fallen into a rhythm, careful, cautious, circling each other like dancers who knew the steps but were afraid to touch. He'd brush past me in hallways, his hand grazing my waist. I'd catch him watching me feed the babies, something hungry and tender in his gaze. We'd text late at night, conversations that grew increasingly intimate even as we maintained physical distance. The tension between us was a living thing, coiling tighter each day. I heard raised voices downstairs, unusual in a house that typically ran with military precision. Then footsteps, fast and heavy, coming up the stairs. The nursery door burst open, and one of Dante's security team, Marco, the older man who'd driven me that first day, stood there, his face grim. "Miss Hartley, I need you to come with me. Now." My blood turned to ice. "What's wrong?" "Is Dante—" "He's fine. But there's been a situation. We need to move you and the children to a secure location." Emma sensed my fear and started crying. Lorenzo, as if in sympathy, joined in. My hands shook as I tried to gather them both, my mind spinning with terrible possibilities. "What kind of situation?" "Someone tried to grab one of Mr. Salvatore's associates downtown. We have reason to believe they're targeting people close to the family." Marco was already moving, taking Lorenzo from me with surprising gentleness. "This is precautionary, but we can't take chances." The next hours passed in a blur. We were moved to a different property, smaller, more fortress-like, with security that made Dante's main estate look casual. Angela was there, along with other staff I'd come to recognize. Everyone was efficient, calm, professional, but I could see the tension in their movements, hear it in their clipped communications. The babies finally settled after midnight, exhausted from the disruption. I sat in yet another unfamiliar nursery, watching them sleep, trying not to imagine all the terrible things that could be happening to Dante. Because that's what terrified me most. Not my own safety, not even Emma's. I trusted that Dante's people would protect us. But the thought of Dante in danger, of something happening to him, when had he become so essential? The door opened quietly. I spun around, my heart in my throat. Dante stood there, still in his suit but disheveled, his shirt partially unbuttoned, his jaw shadowed with stubble, a cut above his left eyebrow that had been cleaned but not properly bandaged. He looked exhausted, furious, and utterly magnificent. "Lily." My name on his lips sounded like a prayer. I was across the room and in his arms before I consciously decided to move. He caught me, his arms banding around me, crushing me against his chest as I buried my face in his neck and tried not to sob. "You're okay," I whispered against his skin. "You're okay." "I'm fine. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you were scared." His hands moved over my back, my hair, like he needed to confirm I was real. "The threat's been neutralized. You're safe. The babies are safe." "What happened?" He pulled back enough to look at me, his eyes dark and intense. A rival family thought they could use Lorenzo to pressure me into backing down from a territory dispute. They grabbed one of my men, tried to get information about where Lorenzo stays, who cares for him. His jaw clenched. They didn't succeed. I didn't ask what neutralized meant. Didn't want to know the details of what Dante had done to protect his family, but I could see it in his eyes. The violence, the ruthlessness, the darkness that was as much a part of him as his gentleness with the babies. "This is your world," I said quietly. "Violence. Danger. Constant threats. Yes. He didn't look away. Didn't soften it. This is what I am, Lily. What my family is. And I won't lie to you. It won't stop. There will always be enemies. Always be people trying to hurt us. Being close to me means accepting that reality. I should pull away. Should take Emma and run as far and fast as I could from this dangerous, impossible man. Instead, I reached up and touched the cut above his eyebrow. This needs stitches. It's fine. It's not fine. Sit down. Something in my tone made him obey. I found a first aid kit, because of course this safe house had medical supplies, and carefully cleaned the wound. Up close, I could see other marks on him. Bruised knuckles, a darkening shadow along his jaw that would be a spectacular bruise tomorrow, scratches on his neck that looked like someone had grabbed him. He'd been in a fight, had possibly killed someone tonight, and here I was, tenderly bandaging his wounds like this was normal, like I belonged in this world of violence and vengeance. You should be terrified of me, Dante said quietly as I applied butterfly bandages. You should take Emma and disappear. I would let you. I'd make sure you had money, protection, everything you needed to start over somewhere safe. I know. I finished with the bandages and cupped his face, forcing him to meet my eyes. I know you'd let me go. That's why I'm staying. Lily, I'm not stupid, Dante. I know what you are, what your family does, and I know that being with you means Emma and I will always have targets on our backs. My voice shook, but I pushed through. But I also know that you've given me more security, more safety, more care in 2 months than I've had in my entire life. You look at Emma like she matters. You look at me like I'm not invisible. And when you're with Lorenzo, my throat tightened. You love that baby, truly love him. Despite everything else, that's real. It is real. His hands came up to cover mine, his eyes fierce. Everything I feel for you is real, Lily. This isn't about convenience or business anymore. Maybe it never was. From the moment you walked out of that diner, you've been... He struggled for words. You've been the first real thing in my life in years, and I'm selfish enough to want to keep you, even knowing the danger. Then keep me. The words were out before I could stop them. Stop circling. Stop pretending this is just about Lorenzo. Stop treating me like I'm made of glass. If I'm staying, if I'm accepting this life, then I'm all in. No more half measures. Something ignited in his eyes, something dark and hungry that made my pulse race. You don't know what you're asking. I know exactly what I'm asking. Lily. My name was a warning and a plea. If I touch you now, I won't stop. I won't be gentle. I've wanted you too long, needed you too much. Good. I leaned in, my lips brushing his jaw. I don't want gentle. I want real. He snapped. His mouth crashed against mine, stealing my breath, my thoughts, my last shred of resistance. The kiss was everything I'd imagined in those late-night moments of weakness. Fierce, consuming, desperate. His hands tangled in my hair, angling my head for deeper access, and I opened for him with a moan that came from somewhere primal. He tasted like smoke and sin and dark promises. His stubble scraped my skin. His teeth nipped at my lower lip. His tongue swept into my mouth with devastating skill. I clutched at his shoulders, his shirt. Anything to anchor myself as the world spun away. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard, his forehead pressed to mine. This changes everything, he said roughly. I know. You'll be mine. Completely mine. I don't share, Lily. I don't do casual. If we do this, you're under my protection, in my life, in my bed. You and Emma both. Understood? The possessiveness should have scared me. Instead, it sent heat flooding through my body. Understood. Say it. His hand cupped my throat, not threatening, just holding, claiming. Say you're mine. I'm yours, I whispered. He kissed me again, slower this time, but no less intense. Then he picked me up, literally swept me off my feet, and carried me to the bedroom adjoining the nursery. The door locked behind us with a quiet click. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and Dante's arm heavy across my waist. For a moment, I just lay there, absorbing the reality of what had happened. My body ached in the most delicious ways, marked with evidence of Dante's possession, Hickeys on my throat, fingerprint bruises on my hips, beard burn on my inner thighs. He'd been everything I'd imagined and more. Dominant, demanding, but also surprisingly tender. He'd worshipped my body like it was sacred, brought me to the edge again and again until I'd begged, then pushed me over into pleasure so intense I'd seen stars. And afterward, he'd held me. Just held me, his fingers tracing patterns on my skin, his voice rough as he whispered promises in Italian that I didn't understand, but felt in my bones. "You're awake," he murmured now, his lips brushing my shoulder. "The babies, Angela has them. She texted an hour ago, both fed, both happy." He pulled me closer, his morning arousal evident against my back. "We have time. Dante, I love you." The words were simple, stark, undeniable. I know it's too soon. I know I'm supposed to wait, play it cool, not scare you off. But I've never been good at lying, especially not to you. I love you, Lily. I think I have since you offered your milk to a stranger's dying child. And I need you to know that before we go any further. Tears pricked my eyes. You can't love me. You barely know me. I know you better than anyone. He turned me to face him, his expression fierce. I know you're strong and stubborn. I know you'd sacrifice anything for Emma. I know you cry during sad movies and hate the smell of coffee but drink it anyway. I know you hum when you're nervous and bite your lip when you're thinking. I know you're terrified of being abandoned again, but you're brave enough to stay anyway. How do you know all that? Because I pay attention. Because you matter. Because loving you is the easiest thing I've ever done. He cupped my face. You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. But the words were already there, pressing against my heart. I love you too, I whispered. I'm terrified, and it's probably insane, but I love you. His kiss was gentle this time, reverent, and I felt something settle into place, something that felt like coming home. 3 months later, I stood in Dante's living room, our living room, watching Emma take her first wobbly steps toward Lorenzo, who was sitting up on his own now, clapping his chubby hands in encouragement. They'd become inseparable, these two babies who'd brought me and Dante together. They look like siblings, Angela observed, smiling as she supervised from the couch. They practically are, I said softly. Dante's arms came around me from behind, pulling me against his chest. They will be, he murmured in my ear. Officially. I turned in his arms. What? He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and my heart stopped. I was going to wait, plan something elaborate, but watching them together, watching you with them, he opened the box, revealing a stunning diamond ring. Marry me, Lily. Make this family official. Let me spend the rest of my life protecting you, loving you, giving you everything you deserve. Dante, I know it's fast. I know my world is dangerous, but I also know I've never been more certain of anything. His eyes held mine. Say yes, please. I thought of the girl I'd been 3 months ago, invisible, exhausted, drowning. I thought of the woman I'd become, seen, loved, protected. I thought of Emma, thriving in a home full of warmth and security. I thought of Lorenzo, healthy and happy, calling me Mama in his baby babble. I thought of Dante, this dangerous, complicated man who'd given me everything and asked for only one thing in return, to let him love me. Yes, I whispered. His kiss tasted like joy and promise and forever. Emma squealed, and Lorenzo clapped, and Angela was definitely crying, and somewhere in the background, I heard the security team radioing congratulations to each other. This was my life now. Messy, dangerous, unconventional, absolutely insane, and I wouldn't change a single thing. 2 years later, I sat in the nursery of our new home, bigger, safer, with a yard where Emma and Lorenzo could play, nursing our daughter, Sophia. Dante sat beside me, Lorenzo asleep on his shoulder, reading a bedtime story to Emma, who was curled in his lap. And they lived happily ever after, he finished, closing the book. Like us? Emma asked, her voice sleepy. Exactly like us, Principessa. She smiled and let him carry her to bed. Lorenzo stayed asleep. He did that now, slept through anything. A healthy, happy 2-year-old who called both Dante and me his parents. When Dante returned, he took Sophia from me, cradling her with expert ease, and looked at me with eyes full of love and wonder. "Happy?" he asked. I thought of everything we'd been through, the threats we'd faced together, the enemies he'd vanquished to keep us safe, the life we'd built from impossible circumstances. I thought of my ring, of his name now legally attached to mine and to Emma's, of the family we'd forged from tragedy and milk and desperate hope.
"Happier than I ever imagined possible," I said honestly. He leaned down and kissed me, soft and sweet, our daughter between us, our family complete, and in that moment, I knew, with absolute certainty, that sometimes the most dangerous choices lead to the safest havens. Sometimes the darkest men offer the brightest light. Sometimes a single act of kindness to a stranger's dying child can change everything. Sometimes love finds you in the most unlikely places.
And sometimes, just sometimes, invisible girls become queens of their own dangerous, beautiful kingdoms. I'd saved Lorenzo's life that night at the diner. But the truth was, Dante had saved mine, and that made all the difference.